Good afternoon and welcome. Thank you everyone for tuning in over your noon hour today. My name is Andy Frisky. I am a senior dream curator at DreamBank. And again, love to welcome everybody this afternoon. So you may have viewed a lot of these streams so far. You may have viewed a few, or this may be your first time. If it is, I'd love to give you a little bit of context as to who we are and why we are here. So DreamBank is a free community resource that is put on by American Family Insurance. The whole reason why we exist is to help inspire people to pursue their dreams, and in large part that's done by removing barriers for them. Our event series is one of our largest components of the space, and we host 11 different event series, anything ranging from the business series, such as this event today, as well as we have a crafting series, we host fitness-related activities, we have events in Spanish. So we really try to appeal to as many different dreamers as possible. One thing I'd like to highlight, though, is in addition to the daily event series, our signature events. I'll go ahead and put a link to those in the comment section here. But it's something that we've recently developed and are really proud of. We've started to champion dream coaching, in which you can receive coaching on your dreams. We have our Dream Academy program, which is really like a deep dive, multiple session, almost masterclass format. And then we have our upcoming Dream Summit, which is early October. That's going to be a representation of all of those 11 different event series that I managed into a multi-day kind of compact, concise event. So again, I'll link that. Please go ahead and check that out. But today we have Ashley Quinto Powell. You're probably familiar with her if you've been hanging around this channel since the beginning of the pandemic, or if you were attending our in-person events. If you aren't familiar, well, get ready. She's going to be talking about how to ace your next salary negotiation. Ashley, go ahead and take it away.
Thank you so much, Andy. I am really excited to be back working with DreamBank again. And now we're going to talk about salary negotiation. It's one of my favorite things to talk about because I think the self-advocacy of this is so, so important. And for the life of my career, I have been a primary or sole breadwinner for my family. And so it's a big deal to me that there is a gender pay gap. And it's a big deal to me that people who should be making gobs of money sometimes are not. So I'm going to help solve the part of the equation that we can solve ourselves. Of course, there are systemic issues. We're not going to talk about them today, but we're going to get you as far as we can get you on your own. All right. So a little housekeeping. There are absolutely time for questions. At the top of the slides is a web address. If you go there, you can submit questions anonymously. They show up right on the screen that I'm looking at. You can also upvote questions there, and Andy is watching the Facebook chat. And so if that works better for you, that's a good way to submit questions as well. You can take screenshots of anything that you're looking at. Most of my slides don't have a ton of text, but there will be some times where there are like quotes, like here's exactly what you say. And so feel free, instead of writing those down, screenshot it, take a picture with your phone, whatever. There are 51 slides and 5 sections, which sounds like a lot. It is, but I go fast. But I have, for the most part, the slides are numbered in case you are like me and get kind of anxious about when things end, especially if someone is droning on, which I will try not to do, but happens to the best of us. And then again, questions can be submitted anytime. Okay, so maybe you're asking yourself, who the heck are you? So I'm, in fact, Ashley Quinto Powell. This is the best picture ever taken of me. And if you see me speak, I sort of require that everyone take a look at it for a few seconds because it's so darn flattering. I'm very active on LinkedIn, and I would love to connect with you there. But at my heart, I am a technical consulting sales expert. That's what I do for my actual work. I help small marketing agencies and software development firms really get slick about their sales. And I am delighted about the work I do teaching founders to do the sales. I feel like all of my clients got into what they were doing because they wanted to be amazing software developers or amazing copywriters, and they did not get into it to do sales. And so I help make that a little bit more joyful for them. But sales is self-advocacy, and I'm pretty excited about self-advocacy on many fronts. So I have over $20 million in personal career sales. I was a programmer at one point in my career. I have founded, I think I'm up to 5 companies. I was in business 40 under 40 a couple of years ago. I frequently speak, and the highlight of my career perhaps was that I was the subject of, not the author of, but the subject of a book called She's a Technology Sales Executive and She's My Mom, written by Jennifer Javornik. And it's a very cute book that you can still find on Amazon. So I started my technical consulting career at Oxford, and I feel it was it rolled up into a $2 billion consulting firm, and it's really where I cut my chops. When I got to Oxford, I had just closed my first startup, and that was a website that just got eaten very cruelly by the recession. And I came out of that like traumatized, needing a job. It's actually why I moved to Madison. But they were willing to pay me a whopping $25,000 to work for them full time, and I said I'll take it. But I learned quite a lot, and I advanced through the ranks, and I was there for 8 years. When I ended, I was a senior manager there, and so I probably got most of my, it's a staffing firm. I probably got most of the tips and tricks that I'm going to teach you working at Oxford, because I was able to negotiate with the employees on my team for myself. And then I saw the way that clients negotiated with us, the way that consultants negotiated with us. We really got a chance to see it from a 360-degree view. I left there for a wonderful small consulting firm called Bendyworks, which is still one of my favorite companies. I'm back consulting with them, and it is just such a pleasure. This was the first time I made a 6-figure base. So I've always been paid as a salesperson, which means I typically have a base salary, and then I'm supposed to earn the rest with what I sell. And when I left Oxford, I was making 6 figures. And one of the things that was a narrative at many sales-driven organizations is, well, you can't leave, because if you leave, you'll have to go back to making, that $25,000 a year, and you don't want to start over. And I felt that was just poppycock. I thought that was the most ridiculous thing. I had a mortgage to pay. I had 2 children, and it's not cute to go from making over 6 figures to starting from 0. And so, and on this job search, I was really pointed in this idea that if somebody wanted to hire me, they needed to keep me level with where I was. And I was pretty confident that I could help someone else in the same capacity. I have this fantastic track record, but I'm not going back to making $25,000 a year. So I worked at Bendyworks for a couple of years, and then got lured away by, you may have seen Brava magazine around Madison. Well, I went to work for their parent company. And the way that I got that job is I heard that they were looking for a sales manager for Brava magazine. And I networked my way to the president of the parent company. And I said, well, tell me about your problem. Okay, I think I can solve that for you, but I don't think it makes sense for you to bring me on just as the sales manager at Brava. Why don't you rearrange the company and put me as the head of sales for all of your magazines? They have about 30. And so that's exactly what they did. They brought me in as the VP of sales. And I then was over all 30 sales teams, or all the sales teams for 30 magazines. And surprising no one, publishing is very different from tech. And after about 6 months, I said, Uncle, I need to get back into tech, which moves so much faster. And I called up a couple of buddies. I called BendyWorks, who I had already worked for, and I called the CEO of this company, TableXI, and said, hey, I have to get back into tech. Where should I go? And both of them said TableXI. And TableXI had kind of been looking for someone to run sales and marketing, but they ended up sort of creating this position around what I wanted it to be. The reason that I tell you about both Brava Magazine and TableXI is because as you advance in your career, there's something really important that happens. And that is you get to kind of make up your own roles. If you've been in your career for, let's say 10 or 15 years, maybe one of the things that you've noticed is that the jobs at the top are harder to get. There are certainly less of them available, and the ways that you found were really effective at finding a job when you're early in your career just don't work as you get more senior. So I essentially went to these two companies and I said, hey, here's what I'd like to do for you. Here's the position I think you should create for me. And thankfully they both said yes. But the only reason that I had the guts and the chutzpah to do that was because when I was in the 7th grade, my Spanish teacher, I grew up in Chicago. She quit being our Spanish teacher in order to go be the cultural liaison for the Cubs, which at the time was like the coolest job I could possibly imagine. And the Cubs were having a PR problem with their players for whom English was not their first language. Culturally, they were coming in and they were like rude to waitresses, and it was creating a real PR problem for the Cubs. So this teacher said, I speak both languages fluently. I'm really comfortable with both cultures. Why don't you hire me to come in and train your players all around to behave appropriately in Chicago? And so that's what they hired her to do. If she hadn't been transparent about how she pitched that to the Cubs, I wouldn't have remembered it like 20 years later and felt gutsy enough to pitch these two positions. And that's why I share it with you. I hope that it gets filed away in the back of your mind so that when you see something at a company that could be carved into a role for you, you know that that's possible. And it's definitely gutsy, but doable, and a great way to open up positions for yourself. So now I work for myself. I have, of course, a consultancy. I also have a virtual assistant agency. My VA rocks. I do lots and lots of speaking. And one of the pleasures of this part of my my career is giving a TEDx talk at TEDx Normal, where I talked about executive motherhood, and I've been back to talk about executive motherhood with DreamBank, and I'll be back again, I believe, in September. So anyway, I get to do just the coolest things. But I'm going to talk through how to work through this part of your career in a way that gets you in the door, that gets you the jobs you want, and gets you the pay that you deserve. So one of the things you might have noticed is that for some positions right now, there are a lot of applicants. I think there are definitely some industries, software developers in particular, where there is just a shortage, and software developers can really like name their price. But for most other roles, that's not the case. And we've certainly gone through some turbulent times in the last couple of years. I've been really vocal about how you're still in a position where you can negotiate salary, where that's an expected thing. At no point should you feel so undeserving of a job that you can't ask for more money. So the first thing I'm gonna help you understand is how to break through the noise in a job search. Okay, first of all, not all jobs are online. Networking and reputation are actually the things that will get you where you need to go, and so it's a great idea to never stop networking. But here's the trouble with job boards. So ZipRecruiter, Dice, Monster, they're all boasting perfect candidates. And ZipRecruiter is particularly keen on these ads where they say, well, if you put out a job description, we'll get you perfect candidates in like 5 minutes. All right, well, listen, ideally, you are not a perfect candidate. You're looking for a challenge. You're looking for a way to a way to grow into a role. And when somebody says, "Oh, it's a perfect candidate," what they're really saying is, you've been doing the job for, let's say, 5 years. You do it really well. You're okay continuing to do that job for another 5 years with really only a modest increase in pay. And that's not what you want. You want to be able to grow in your career. You want to be able to expand, and hopefully you're looking for a real challenge. But when someone is focused on finding the perfect candidate for a hiring manager, they're missing out on all of the people who are ambitious, who can grow into roles, who have real potential. So we're going to get you away from job boards. I think job boards are appropriate when you're just starting out, when you're looking for something entry level. It's an okay way to be submitting things. By the time you get really senior in your career, I hope you never submit to a job board, because that's not the way that those senior level jobs are for the most part filled. They're filled because someone says, I've been talking with Jane for the last 3 years. She has some really impressive chops and some really great ideas, and I think she'd be amazing in this role. Sometimes if you see like a very, very senior level role on a job board, it will be because they've picked someone, but HR says, well, you didn't even put it out there. So let's at least see who we can get. And the people who respond to that ad are being compared against someone who already has the job. So let's lose faith with job boards and focus on networking as a way to really expand the work that you're doing. So one of the things I like to say is that your career is not a ladder. We often think about it and we often talk about it as, we're climbing the corporate ladder, or I love the image of women climbing the ladder and then reaching behind and lifting another woman up. Lift as we rise. I think it's very, very powerful. But for here, let's think about our career not as a ladder, but as a pyramid. So imagine it like this. There are at the bottom very, very easy to find jobs. And at the top, of course, very, very hard to find jobs. This is because, entry level stuff at the bottom, lots of those roles, but there are also lots of people to fill those roles. At the very top, there are very few roles, but also very few people who can fill them. And so one of the things that naturally takes place in an employment market is that there's some matching time that takes place. There's just some time that takes for a really well-qualified, high-level candidate to find that really perfect high-level job. So one of the things that I want you to do is as you're climbing this ladder and as you get towards the top of that pyramid, it can feel like you are treading water, like you are applying, like you are interviewing tons and tons of places. But you need to understand that there are very few of you and very few of these jobs. It won't feel like what it felt like when you were an entry-level employee and you could be slated in almost anywhere. It'll feel much different. It'll probably be much more frustrating. But absolutely don't lose faith. It just takes extra long for a really amazing job to find the really amazing person who can fill it. All right, so that's the career pyramid. The way to get those jobs at the very top, I contend, is mostly in networking, and you can't just go to people when you need something. You need to be networking for your whole career, establishing relationships so that you can create opportunity for yourself later on. One of the things that I help business owners do is, listen, if you need projects fast, if you are in need of sales really, really quickly, you don't go out into the ether. You don't go out to try to figure out what new people might need you. You stay close to home. All the stuff that's really close to a close in a business scenario is where you've already established a relationship. And that is absolutely true for a job search as well. So I would keep up the networking that you're doing, or start it if you're not, because that is the critical piece to creating really amazing opportunity later in your career. So one of the first things to focus on is, what is your value proposition? Mostly when people start to get into the job market, it is because like their boss has been a jerk and they have been working harder than anyone else and not acknowledged for it. And it's time for them to move. And so they'll get into a state where they'll say, I have bills to pay. I'm a really, really good person. I don't deserve to be treated like this. And for somebody, I'm going to make a great employee, but I just don't deserve this terrible treatment. Well, that's compelling if you're talking to your best friend, but less compelling if you're talking to a hiring manager. My value proposition is I sell between $2.5 and $3.5 million a year, and I'm confident I can do that for you. So when I say I'm going to sell basically $3 million and you have to pay me six figures, it feels like a steal. So that's how your value proposition will work. How are you going to come in and help them solve whatever problems are keeping them up at night? And how are you going to do that seamlessly? No one is concerned about whether you need money, want money, are a really good person. They just want to know, how can you help my business thrive and be really successful? All right. So one of the ways that I like to frame this is I help people like you solve XYZ problem by doing this thing that I'm really great at doing, and just make it one sentence. So like I help people in the job market do really well about salary negotiation by coaching them along the way. All right, so that can be your value proposition. It's a really good template for how to put something together, but I would absolutely stay away from, as you're thinking through the way you're going to negotiate and what your salary should be, I would absolutely stay away from how much you need, and sort of anything else that will be immaterial to the actual salary negotiation. I have this conversation with people that I'm coaching one-on-one all the time, that when I say, hey, are you going to raise your prices? Someone will, or are you going to raise what you asked for your salary? They will say, well, I come from humble beginnings. I'm a nice Midwestern gal. I don't really need it. So, I'm okay. I don't care. No one cares if you need it, what your upbringing was, if you have money in the bank or you don't. That is not what a potential employer is thinking about. And shoot, just the principle of it, you should be making as much as the person next to you, or maybe a little bit more, especially if you're better, which you and I both know you are. So start with a value proposition. And don't worry about sort of the things that are really important to you about why you deserve or need to make more money. Focus on what the market says you're worth and what you deserve, and focus on your value proposition and what you bring to the table. I'll tell you also, you only need to carry 50% of a conversation like this. So as you're thinking through the ways that you interact with people who might be in a position to network with, get you where you need to go, it is really common to be just absolutely paralyzed with fear about, well, what do I say? How do I start that conversation? And I promise you, you only need to carry 50% of the conversation. One of the things that I'm really consistently telling people is if you've done your part and you're carrying 50% of this conversation, and it's still a dud, not your fault. Not your fault. You did your part. You can say that awkwardness was officially not on you. And mostly people pick up at least 50% of the conversation. So I hope that gives you a little bit of confidence. I'll tell you also, one of my best rules for networking in a scenario like this is that everyone was a big dork in high school. Here's what I mean by that. Do you remember, and this is a universal experience, everyone has this memory of standing in a high school cafeteria holding like a tray of food and looking around and thinking, I don't know anyone. I have no friends. I am literally the biggest dork in the world. And if someone would only lock eyes with me and invite me over, it would save the day. And in high school, probably nobody did because high schoolers are jerks. But everybody has this experience. And if you're in an in-person networking event, you will absolutely see, if you look around along the perimeter of the room, there are at least a couple of people who are reliving this terrible experience right there. They will be thinking through, man, I can't wait to get out of here. I would like to understand how quickly I can finish this drink and be on my way and still check it off as having been here. Like, how do I still get credit for being here? And if you're wondering how to get going at a networking event, like how do I find someone to talk to? If there are lots of groups of people who already know each other, there will 100% be people at the perimeter who are reliving this big dork in high school thing, and make them your friends, spark up a conversation, save the day for them, be that one that locked eyes with them in the cafeteria and invited them to sit down, because I promise you will make a friend for life. So one of the things that you want to be armed with when you go into any networking is one good question. My go-tos are like, where are you from? What's your role? One of my absolute favorites, and I love it, it's so versatile, is how's your summer going? It's so brilliant because if you're talking to a business acquaintance, they can really take this either way. If they want to keep the conversation strictly business, they can talk about their Q3 goals. They can talk about what's going on with hiring. They can say, well, we had just a bonkers great quarter, and I'm excited for Q4. And if they want to talk about their vacation, they can talk about their vacation if they want to take it personal. So I really like the how's your season going. I have found that it is just a lifesaver. Other great ones, tell me a little bit about yourself, tell me more about your company. And then it's cliche for a reason, but asking and talking about the weather ends up being something that is at least going to get you out of an awkward jam. Okay, fine. One more good question. Here are some that are, what do you love most about the work that you do? How did your career evolve? What are you looking to get out of the event today? What can I do to help you? These are all great questions, but if you want to understand what they want you to ask, just ask them the question they just asked you. So if they just asked you, hey, do you have any vacations coming up? I promise you, they don't really care about your vacations. They want you to ask them something that will allow them to tell you all about the vacations they have coming up. So if someone asks you a question like that, know that you should answer it as briefly as humanly possible and then turn it back on them. And you will make your conversation partner very, very, very happy. So you can also do that by asking the questions that you want to be asked, and hopefully they'll pick up on it. Hopefully they're also in this call. All right. I'll say too, some of the best networkers are introverts, and introversion might be where you get your energy, but it's not a behavior. If you're an introvert, just plan some time to be alone, do some online legwork. You can tell that I'm an extrovert, but there are absolutely times when I get off of a call where I've expended lots and lots of energy, or networking events often are high energy events for me. And I get home and I just crash. Everybody needs some time to be alone and to recharge the batteries. Okay, so you're probably wondering, like, what does this have to do with salary negotiation? Great question. This is how you create roles that are a little bit more senior than you would otherwise be able to get. It's all about the networking. One of the things that I talk about quite a lot when I talk to women's groups in particular is that a lot of times we'll sit at our desk and we will work through lunch, and we will we'll leave with nothing left to be done, and go pick up kids. We'll arrive at the office having spent the last 2 hours like driving around and getting toddlers in pants, and it's a real grind to be a working parent, and so we're pretty heads down once we get there. And it's very tempting to look at the people around us who are chatting with coworkers, who are going out to lunch, who are kicking off early on Fridays to go play golf, or to go to cocktails, and say, it's so frivolous. I would never do that. Well, those people are networking. So give them a little credit, first of all. Those are the relationships that will get them places that they want to go. And focus too on how you can incorporate more networking, if that sounds like you. Okay, so another big piece of networking for creating a job is following up. I would say that level 1 is LinkedIn. Invite them to connect. Do a little bit of internet sleuthing. If you post on LinkedIn, I post an awful lot. I try to be really relevant there. Your posts in the algorithm will be kicked up a notch, and you'll be shown to more people. And then interact with people's posts. People really, really like this. If you have someone that you are looking to impress or looking to network with, often liking a couple, like their 2 last posts, and then inviting them to coffee is a really great way to go. And that might sound like, hey, it was great meeting you. Please let me know if I can ever help you with a connection or an introduction. And that's a great way just to connect on LinkedIn. And then here's another one. It was great meeting you at the job fair. Please keep me in mind if I can help you navigate the campus. And then level 2 is to add email. I love this trick. There's a 1-2 punch of LinkedIn and email. What I will do personally is I'll send an email, right? If someone has given you their business card, you have their email and you could look them up on LinkedIn. They send an email that sounds like, it was great meeting you, or it was great meeting you, and I'd love to grab coffee. Express an interest in staying in touch or networking together, and then send that email, and then immediately follow it up with a connection request on LinkedIn. And sometimes I'll say, hey, I just sent you an email a little bit out of the blue, and I wanted you to be able to put a face to the name. All right, next. How to be a great communicator. So one of the things that that will be really important as you're navigating this maybe non-traditional job search, is that you'll want to communicate with people the way they want to be communicated with. So here is this is an email that I sent to an actual real life client. And at some point in my career, I would have told my team that every time you use an emoji in a professional email, a puppy dies. That is how often you should use an emoji in a professional email. Well, as it turns out, and actually it was software developers who helped me understand this, there's not much context that you can get through text. And so emojis really help that. But also I know that my client, Amy, really likes to be communicated with in a very familiar, casual tone. If I had sent her an email that was very terse, that was very, very professional, she would feel like I didn't like her. So this is definitely probably more familiar and more casual than I would send to a lot of clients. But for Amy, it really makes her feel pulled in and shows her that we have a great relationship. This is how she wants to be communicated to. So you may be asking me, how do you know how people like to be communicated to? And this is just absolute sales magic. It's a website called crystalknows.com, and it evaluates, it uses AI to evaluate someone's LinkedIn profile and spit out some results that tell you how they like to be communicated to. And it's based on the DISC profile. Now, in fairness, no one needs to have taken the DISC profile. Crystal Knows just evaluates LinkedIn. But this is my DISC profile. Surprising no one. I'm most likely to be self-assured, expressive, and inventive. I might challenge old ways of thinking while in pursuit of new strategies and ideas. And here's the thing that is very, very, very true about me. I have a tendency to be over-optimistic about timelines when planning. I mean, this is just bang on. Here is the profile of a dear friend of mine, Megan Conter of the Dames. And over to the right, you'll see, this is just a screenshot, but it's the Crystal Knows assessment of how to communicate with Megan. All right, so we see she likes communicating with casual language, bold statements. The quick tip there is to act casual but be assertive. She really likes telling stories, but she avoids following a set of instructions. All right, so this is going to give me some very clear ways to communicate with her. Now, it's not you being inauthentic. It's just some clues about how to approach someone you don't know very well in a way that is most likely to get you in the door, in their good graces, at a networking call. To expand on this a little bit, here are some more screenshots of what Crystal Knows can do. I think it is just such a brilliant technology. And if you are looking to have a meeting or in this case, an investor pitch, there are templates that they'll give you on what makes sense to send to someone with this DISC profile. There's also some instructions on, all right, so in the left-hand column, I've enabled what should go in the body of an email to Megan. So it's use really expressive language. Don't go into detail in writing. Do that as much in person. I could also get insight into what the greeting should be, what the subject line should be, how I should sign off on it. And if you're a person who has ever deliberated for more than 2 minutes on these kinds of details, this is an absolute game changer. And it's just super, super helpful. So head over to Crystal Knows if that is something. They have, I think you get to do 10 profiles a month on the free version. I just really, really love it. Okay, so now let's get into collaborative negotiation, probably the thing that you really came here for. As I'm thinking through salary negotiation and how to make a really good next move, I always think about this book, Quitter by John Acuff. And it talks about leaving your job to be an entrepreneur, which I'm not sure I'm ready to recommend that part of the book, but he does ask a really important question. And that question is, who becomes your boss when you hate your boss so much you quit? Now, I always ask this as a trick question. We won't do that to you today because I like you too much, but I always ask this as a trick question. And an audience always says, oh, you become your boss when you hate your boss so much you quit. But actually, lots of other people become your boss. The person who, the banker who is upset that you didn't pay your mortgage because you didn't have any money becomes your boss. The spouse that had no warning that you were about to up and quit and have no income, that person will certainly become kind of a terrible boss, I would imagine. So one of the things that I want to focus on first is safety. You have to feel really confident if you're going into a negotiation that you're going to be able to put food on the table, that you're going to be able to pay your mortgage. So for heaven's sake, don't rage quit. Okay? That's got to be a deal that you and I make together. Don't rage quit. Do you remember Steven Slater? He is my favorite quitter. So you may remember many years ago, Steven Slater was a flight attendant. He got really upset and he went down the aisle of the airplane shouting expletives. He grabbed a couple of beers from the beverage cart, popped the emergency slide, and slid down into infamy. Steven Slater already rage quit the best that anyone will ever rage quit. So we don't need to do it. We're never going to top Steven Slater. We probably don't even have access to an emergency chute. So we're just going to leave the rage quitting to him, because you can't negotiate well if you need a job. And I want you to negotiate and I want you to push for what you deserve. But if you're in a position where you are worried about how you're going to put food on the table, how you're going to pay your mortgage, take the first job. Just take the first job. You don't have to keep that first job. It doesn't have to be your next 20-year job. Just get bills paid. You get to do that guilt-free because your family has to be fed. You have to feel secure because you really can't negotiate if you need a job. All right. Next thing I'll tell you is that your boss is not a mind reader. For all of you who are in a position where you're thinking of leaving a company because of something going wrong, my guess is that you've done a lot of talking about it to the people around you, to the people at home, to your friends, to your spouse, and probably not your boss. This is something that happens really classically. We believe that our boss knows exactly the torment that they are raining down on the team. They understand absolutely how unreasonable those timelines are, how unreasonable the expectation is. But as it turns out, your boss can't know what you don't tell them. So you're going to need to get some guts together to have a really productive call or a productive conversation with someone, because realistically, your boss just can't know what you don't tell them. And I would really encourage you not to let things fester. So if you walked into your boss's office tomorrow and said, well, you probably know I've been unhappy for a year. You're underpaying me. Your timelines are unreasonable, and I have another job. If you haven't had an opportunity or haven't created space for a conversation about how to make it better, your boss will really rightly feel betrayed. Like, I would have absolutely solved these problems if I had known about them. And your boss doesn't want to lose a really good employee. So don't let things fester. Don't do this thing where you talk to everyone around the situation, but not the one person who can do something about it. And the way that you might approach that is to absolutely lead with positivity. I often counsel people to buffer everything with, I am so proud of the work that I am doing, and I am so excited about the work that we are doing together. It's really hard for someone to take something poorly if you start like that, right? I'm really proud of the work that I'm doing, so happy about the work that we're doing together, and present them with a collaboration. And this is really important. I think as we're getting together the guts to go in and have a really difficult conversation, sometimes we forget that this is really this can be the first time someone is learning of it, and how we approach the first 3 minutes of a conversation like this really determines the outcome to a greater extent than we tend to give credit for. So I would start with, I love working with you, and I'm proud of the work I've done over the past year. Something's on my mind, and I want to talk about it so I can understand the whole picture. Right? We're really giving this person the opportunity to explain what's going on. It's very possible that there's something you don't understand about this situation that would change your understanding of it. But here's the next part of it. Can you work with me on this? I've come up with a couple of solutions that would make things significantly better for me, and I'd be interested in hearing what you'd think. So presented like that, this really collaborative approach to negotiation, and this is really specifically for someone who's in a role that you are unhappy with in some way, but if it changed, if you were paid more, if you had more reasonable timelines, that you can keep that and make it into the job you really want it to be. Once you have sort of spoiled a good feeling about a job, it is nearly impossible to get it back. So let's focus on salvaging something that could be a really, really, really good job if one or two things changed. Because as attractive as a new job looks from the outside, it's never as perfect as it seems once you get in there. There's always, always, always something that is sort of an asterisk on a perfect job. I don't know what that is. You don't know what that is on the front end either. But it's really worth working collaboratively if you can, in fact, save the job that you're in. So here are some really quick negotiation tips. Whether you're coming in new to a job or trying to work things out with a current job. Communicate by email if you're more comfortable that way. One of the things that I tell people is that naturally I'm not a great self-advocate because I'm a crier. When I feel like I'm being taken advantage of, it's just like waterworks all over the place. It's very embarrassing. And so it prevents me a lot of times from having a face-to-face interaction on something that I feel deeply connected to. And it is completely possible if that is you, or if you're just nervous being in a one-on-one communication with someone, push it to email. Just stop answering calls, and every time someone calls you, respond with an email, and push it to email that way. Okay, next one. You don't have to say yes immediately. And what I would strongly recommend is that you take 24 hours, even if you know you're going to accept, even if you have negotiated for a little bit and you know that this is like a bonkers great offer. You're so excited about it. Can't wait to work with the team. Everything is perfect. Just wait 24 hours. One, it is okay not to seem overeager. it is very likely that when you sleep on it, you'll come up with one more thing that you can ask for, whether that's some like non-monetary benefit, like how about a little bit more PTO, or how about you pay for a larger proportion of my health insurance, or something like that. Inevitably, in those 24 hours, you're going to come up with something, or a friend that you talk to is going to come up with something, but you're going to just be glad that you waited 24 hours. So don't say yes immediately. Take some time. It's the point where you're negotiating a salary, especially with a new company. The time before you say yes is really the only time that you have any power. Every other time you're up against other candidates, but once they've narrowed it down to you, they're really not negotiating with anybody else. So you can take your sweet time. In the interview process, that's not true. As you're submitting your resume, that's not true. But right before you say yes, that is where you have all the power. So stay in that as long as you can. One of the tricks I really like is to pretend you're negotiating on behalf of your family or pets. If it is in your nature to be really modest and really kind, that may mean you ask for less when it comes to negotiating for yourself. But if you have pets or family, think about it like you're taking food out of my baby's mouths. And I promise that will give you the additional kick you need to have a strong collaborative negotiation. So just negotiating on behalf of the people that you're advocating for, because sometimes it's just easier to be an advocate for somebody else than it is to be for ourselves. Your value is highest before you start a company. And one of the reasons that I want to make sure to mention that is because a lot of times, especially in companies that are difficult to get into, or startups, someone will say, well, I will get my foot in the door, prove that I have value, and then ask for more. And sometimes that will even be semi-negotiated upfront, or at least it will be alluded to upfront that, all right, I'll start at this, but once I get going, then you'll pay me what I'm actually worth. Well, the problem with that is while you've proven that you're worth more money, you've also proven that you will accept less. And there's something magical that happens when you first start a job, and that is that you become a gigantic idiot and everyone is wondering why they hired you, including you. So it's that like 2 weeks before you're really settled in, where you have to ask someone about every single thing, where the bathroom is, where the paper clips are, how to work a copier. And there's a point where you're not understanding the culture, but you're trying to settle in. And so you just violate all of the unspoken norms that exist. It's not a good scene. So if that's the time that you're thinking you'll ask for more money, I promise you they're trying to figure out why they hired you in the first place. So that like first 2 weeks is kind of a nightmare. But before you start, you are just a pristine genius who is going to come in and crush it. So focus on all of the negotiating that you do. Focus on having that done before you start. I've just not seen people be successful at all with the foot in the door technique. Next, I want you to remember you're the only one focusing on your shortcomings. This is really important because as we're thinking through how we're going to negotiate, we often think of both sides of the equation. Well, naturally, I deserve $125,000 a year. But I don't have a degree, and so that probably means something to them, and I can't work after 4, and that probably stop. You don't need to negotiate on their behalf also. Just get yourself ready for your side of the negotiation, which is all positive stuff. It's all the reasons that you deserve to make big, big, big money. And also from the other side, when a hiring manager makes the decision to hire you, it is because they met with you, they met with lots of other people, they determined that you were the person they wanted. Then they had to go to likely their boss and HR and pitch you and say, this is why this is the best person for the job. So they've already done some additional championing of you before you get into that negotiation. So there's no reason that they need to be all hyped up about you, and you need to be focusing on both sides of the equation. Just also hype yourself. All right. Next, remember that they are coming to you because they need your help. They put out the job description because they needed someone just like you. They are not doing this out of the kindness of their heart. They need you. And you are really in a good power position, whether you're in the job already or it's something new that you're negotiating a new salary for. All right. I hope that this has been super helpful. I hope it has helped you level up your next job search and your next negotiation. I'll take questions now, but I'm on LinkedIn very, very frequently at Ashley Quinto Powell. I would love to connect with you there. And my website is ashleyquintopowell.com if you want to learn a little bit more about what I'm up to. I'll open it up for questions, but Andy, thank you so much for having me.
Yes, thank you, Ashley. It's always a pleasure getting to sit in and hear you shed your knowledge and expertise. So again, to kind of echo her sentiment, if there are any questions, go ahead and get them now, either at the link in her PowerPoint there or in the comments section, wherever you are viewing this. I have, we both have access to that in front of us right now. While you go ahead and do that though, I would love to highlight some of our upcoming events. So if you are viewing this on our Facebook page, please go ahead and go over to that events tab. That'll be a good concise list of what we have upcoming. Excuse me, as Ashley mentioned, she will actually be back here a little bit later this year in October. And we have a bunch of other great events. As I mentioned, 11 different event series, roughly an event a day that we put out. So please go ahead and check that out. Not only does that have the events that we have upcoming, but that also goes all the way back to when we first started streaming at the beginning of the pandemic, end of March 2020. So really, really good events and nuggets of information in there. We do have a question that came in from Anne. So Anne asked, if and when they say no to a higher salary or added benefit, then what?
It's a great question. They don't have to say yes. It's really good to be able to ask. They don't have to say yes. So, but then you've given them an opportunity really to make you happy. So if for some reason you have put together all of the reasoning, you've asked in a really professional way, and they say no, then you have the opportunity to make a decision about whether to take what they have offered or stick where you are or find someone else. But I think once you have given everybody the opportunity to either raise the salary as much as it can be raised, or give you some additional benefits, after you've given them that opportunity, then it's totally fair game to say, you know what, that's fine. It was optional to give that to me, but now I'm going to take that on the chin and either know that or keep going in my career and find somewhere else to work. I think there's something really magical that happens in a career. You know, there's a very good reason that there are very few instances of somebody coming in as a janitor and working their way up to CEO. That almost never happens because even if someone promotes the janitor to, let's say, manager, they will forever be patting themselves on the back for that move, but they'll always think of that person as a janitor. So if you think of your career as a series of lateral moves, so that is like, let's say we start at level software developer 1. That's where we're going to start. It's like an apprentice level, and then we're going to get promoted to software level 2 and maybe software lead. All right, so everyone in that equation is really happy with our work, but I bet our career stalls out when we get to lead. Then we need to switch over and do a lateral move to another company as a lead. Now, everyone in that company will already see you as a lead who's going places, and so maybe you'll work your way up to senior manager. All right, but at that point, they still understand that you were a lead, and they still may see you as a lead, and you'll notice that your career probably stalls out at senior manager. Well, when you go to the next company as a senior manager, clearly on your way on the rise, it will be really easy for people to see you as a VP and then potentially C-suite because you just came in, and the only history that they have with you is with a fairly high level person. So I think that's there's a reason that people are doing lots more job hopping lately, and I think that that's a good reason for it. And thank you very much for your question.
Got some praise coming in from Emily and Eamon, being very grateful for this presentation. Question from Eamon. My question is how to be able to have a value proposition in a field that you are just starting to pursue and don't necessarily have a successful established background in.
It's a great question. So I have encountered this a lot, especially when someone is switching industries. And so they believe that they're starting over just absolutely from scratch. Well, the thing is, you're not starting over from scratch. You actually have lots of really valid experience in the workforce. You're not a kid right out of college who doesn't have any experience, right? There's a certain amount of professionalism that you have. You understand not to microwave fish in the office microwave, right? Like, you know how to send a professional email. You know how to stay on top of things. You know how to show up on time. That is starting over from scratch, right? Like that's something to compare it to. But you have lots of things that will absolutely translate. And what you need if you're trying to move fields, you need someone who knows you well and who can see why that would transition, because they'll be able to see where you're going and help you get there. If you're just like applying and you're just a resume that doesn't have any relevant experience, it's pretty easy for someone to say, no, that's not going to work. What you really need is someone who sees you, understands your skill set, wants to champion you, and sees your potential. And it's one of the reasons that networking is so important. If you ever want to switch industries, you ever want to get into a field that is not the one you've spent a lot of time in, it's definitely people who already know you that will get you there.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for that, Ashley. So it looks like those are all the questions that have come in today. So we will go ahead and cap it there. Thank you all for tuning in. Thank you, Ashley, for putting this together. Again, she will be back a little bit later this year. With that being said, we will see you all next time.
Thank you, Andy. Thanks, everybody.